If you haven't noticed, I'm not Kevin. Kevin is in Iowa, was there for some graduations with his family, and after 40 days of being here, I'm sure it was a welcome thing to get to go and to see his wife and to be there. So you get me this morning. And if you're new with us, my name is Kaleb. If you're a first-time visitor here, my name is Kaleb. I'm the student pastor here. Excited to be with you this morning. I have a tendency to speak a little fast, so I've got Tim in the first row ready to go like this. If I'm going too fast, he's going to tell me to slow down. I'm going to see a lot of this today, I think. So I recently looked at a list of the top fears in America. It was a poll that someone had done, and I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it again, so I'm sorry I don't have the reference for you as to who did it. But in this list of top fears, some of the things surprised me, some of them didn't. Among them were the fear of heights, the fear of the dark, the fear of snakes, the fear of public speaking, which apparently is a big one for some people. It doesn't freak me out too much. I would rather face all of those things combined than the one on the list that scares me the most. I would rather preach on a skyscraper at night with a snake in each hand than go to the dentist, okay? It terrifies me. I hate the dentist. From the time that I left high school, left my parents' house, and didn't have my mom telling me to go to the dentist anymore, it's been a good 6 years or so since I've been to the dentist, and I had to go a couple of weeks ago for the first time. I had some incredible tooth pain going, and so I finally was just like, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to face my fears. I mustered up every bit of courage in my body to go to the dentist. I'm going to move this so I don't run into it. And I hate the dentist, and so I went and met this dentist for the first time, and instantly, no matter what, no matter how friendly the dentist is, I'm going to hate them because they're a dentist. If I see a comma DDS after someone's name, I instantly just assume I'm not going to like them. It's a real shame. I hung out with Noah Hollinger, one of Kevin's sons, a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good time, and he was a real nice guy and enjoyed spending time with him, but he's in dental school. And so when he graduates in a couple of years, we can't be friends anymore. It's going to be a real shame. I'll feel bad. So I go to the dentist, and I find out that I have to have a root canal, which he found out in like 10 minutes. The dental assistant came and looked. She was like, okay, let's take an x-ray. The doctor comes in, he looks at the x-ray. He's like, yeah, you need a root canal. I can't do that. Well, great. And then, bonus prize, I find out that my tooth is not normal. Big surprise. It's not normal in that the root goes down and then splits into two. They call it a bifurcated root, which makes the root canal all the more enjoyable. Miserable day. I went home at the end of this day and just curled up in a little ball on the couch and just didn't want to do. I slept the entire evening. I didn't want anything to do. The next day, as I was trying to make some decisions, because I could either have the root canal or have it pulled, and insurance was going to pay, X amount depending on what I decided to do. So I was trying to make some decisions about what to do. I still haven't made an appointment. That shows you how I think about it every day, and I haven't made the appointment yet. But I called Myra Jones because somebody informed me, hey, Myra has had lots of dental work done. Sorry, Myra, to have outed you. So I called Myra and I said, hey, here's what's going on. It's tooth number 20. She's like, oh, I know that one. Just kidding. And Myra was like, oh, I've done that. They'll give you the laughing gas. It's not a big deal. I've been there. I understand the nerves about it. I understand what you're going through, but you'll be okay. It's going to be okay. And it was so calming for my soul to talk to somebody who could say, I've been there. I know what you're going through. I know what you're facing, and it's going to be okay. Let's look at our text for this morning. We're going to be in Hebrews chapter 4, if you'd like to turn there. And this one will be on the screen, and I'm also going to do a little jumping around, and some of those won't be on the screen. But we're going to be in Hebrews 4 this morning. And the author of Hebrews, if we were going to sum up the entire book into one phrase, it would simply be, Jesus is better. And so he goes through and he says, Jesus is better than the angels. Jesus is better than the Old Testament Levitical priesthood. Jesus is better than any kind of religious system you might try to turn to And so all throughout the book of Hebrews, he's talking about, here are the reasons that Jesus is better. And so he gets to Hebrews 4, verse 14, and this is what he says. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. Let me pause there for a second. In chapter 1, he's told us that Jesus, having completed the redeeming work on the cross, has now been seated at the right hand of God and passed through the heavens. Okay, so we've got Jesus sitting at the right hand of God. And he says, so we've got this high priest who has passed through the heavens. Let us hold fast our confession. Let us be stern. Let us be brave with the things that we claim to confess, that Jesus is our Savior. Verse 15. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who is sympathetic with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. And we're going to pause there. We'll get to verse 16 in a little bit. He says, we don't have a high priest. We don't have Jesus who's there on our behalf talking with God. We don't have a high priest who doesn't understand what it's like to live life, what it's like to face the difficulties and the challenges that you and I are going to go through. We do have a high priest who knows what that's like. Right? So your first point this morning is that Jesus sympathizes with us in the difficulties of life. That Jesus sympathizes with us in the difficulties of life. We're not alone. We have Jesus who says, I know what you're going through. I've been there. I understand. And theologians for years wrestled with this idea of how can Jesus, who is God, understand what it's like to be a man. And so the shorthand term that they've come to for how Jesus could know what it's like to be a man is this term hypostatic union, which is going to be on the quiz I'm going to hand out in a little bit. Okay, so you better remember it. It's this term hypostatic union, which just means that Jesus is both fully God and fully man in one person. It comes from the Greek word hypostasis that just means like person or essence. And so Jesus in his person, in his essence, is both fully God and fully man. And a little lengthier, a little more detailed account. Here's how Paul puts it. This is Philippians 2. I'm going to read 5 through 11. This one won't be on the screen. I'm sorry. But Paul says, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, fully God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, or like held onto, or held tightly, or seized, but emptied himself, taking on the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even to the death on the cross. Fully God, fully man. So that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Fully God, fully man. Both together in the person of Jesus. Which then enables Jesus, like this text is saying, to be the sympathetic priest who understands what we're going through. As I was studying, I came across this paragraph from an author named Kenneth Woost. I like his name, Woost. It's fun to say. I think it's going to be up there. Here's what he says about this passage in Hebrews. The writer wishes to preclude the common fancy that there was some peculiarity in Jesus which made his temptation wholly different from ours. That he was a chain-mailed champion exposed to toy arrows. Right? The author of Hebrews is trying to wash away this idea that what Jesus faced, the difficulties that he faced, they're not really difficulties. Right? That I like the illustration he uses, that he's like this armored knight, like ready for battle, getting shot at with little Nerf darts. As though Jesus is like, what are you doing? This doesn't matter. This isn't real. That at some point, like Superman, Jesus is going to open his robe and a big red J on his shirt. Like, no, I'm invincible. He was really a man. And he really faced the difficulties of life. And he faced them not on simply an intellectual level, like understanding what they mean, but on a hands-on level, experiencing what it was like to face those things. Some of you know my Land Rover sat in the parking lot for like a month because something was wrong with the brakes and I didn't want to drive it with faulty brakes. You're welcome. And so it sat for a little bit as I was trying to figure out what was going on, and then Sonny Aquino was very nice to come and look at it after church one Sunday and let me know, oh, it's one of your brake lines. And so he explained what that was, and intellectually, I understand what a brake line does. Okay, it delivers brake fluid to the brake and the solenoid and the pad so that my car stops, which is a good thing to have. Okay, but hands-on, I can open the hood and I think that's the battery. And this big thing might be the engine. I don't really know. I don't have a hands-on knowledge of what a brake line does or how to fix one or how to do it. Intellectual, but not hands-on. But what Hebrews is saying is Jesus doesn't only have an intellectual knowledge of the things that we face, but a hands-on, experiential knowledge. He knows and he's been there. And that's a big claim. So let me share with you some passages about what Jesus has faced, and I'm primarily going to be pulling some of these from the Gospels, from the accounts of Jesus' life. And one of your connection card points, if you're interested this week, is to read through one of the Gospels and look for a situation that Jesus faces that you are able to relate to. And I think you'll not have to read long before you find one. Maybe you've been disappointed by those who are close to you. I think that's a fairly common experience for life. And maybe at some point you look at your spouse and you're like, well, this isn't what I signed up for. Right? Maybe you have a particularly frustrating day with your kids and you're like, I'm not sure I want you anymore. You look at your friends and you're like, how could you betray me like that? How could you go against me like that? It happens. It's something we all face where people who are close to us disappoint us. And Jesus faced that. In Mark chapter 14, Jesus is getting ready to go to the cross. And he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane and he takes his disciples, minus Judas who's gone to betray him. And he takes his disciples and he asks them, you wait here and pray for me. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pray for a little bit. And all throughout the week, we get on the connection cards, we get prayer requests. Those come to the staff, and if you check the boxes, they go to some other prayer groups. But we get the sheet every Monday of, hey, here are the prayer requests from Sunday. And occasionally there will be one that just baffles me to the point that I'm going to drop everything I'm doing. I want to pray for this person right now. Okay, if you were Jesus and you put on your connection card, I'm going to die for the sins of the world tomorrow on a cross, please pray for me. I would think that I could stop what I was doing to go ahead and pray for that. That's a pretty big request. That's what Jesus asks of his disciples. Stay here, pray for me. I'm going to go over here and pray. And he comes back to find them asleep. Not once, not twice, 3 times. 3 times Jesus comes back and says, you're sleeping. Again, can't you stay awake and pray with me just for a little bit? These are Jesus' disciples, but they're also his friends. They've been traveling side by side with him for years, and Jesus, sweating drops of blood from ruptured blood cells in his forehead because of the stress and the agony of what he's facing, finds his friends asleep. Maybe you've had friends let you down. Maybe you've had family let you down. Jesus, in Mark chapter 3, has come back to his hometown, and he's there preaching, and the crowds are pressed so tightly that he and his disciples can't even get anything to eat. And Jesus' family shows up, okay? Which normally is a good thing, right? It's exciting to see family. But instead, Jesus' family shows up, and their whole plan is, we're going to take him. What the ESV says is that they've said, the way they phrase it is, he is out of his mind. If you were to ask one of Jesus' siblings, hey, is that your brother? They'd be like, yeah, he thinks he's the Savior. He thinks he's the Messiah. It's crazy. We got to get him to a padded room. And so they come and try to take him away from his ministry by force so that they can go and get him some help as though he needs it. Maybe you've had family that even though you're doing the right things, comes against you and wants to stop you for some reason. Maybe you have faced or will face some amazing grief in the past year. Maybe some of you know what it's like to get that phone call and the pit of your stomach drops out at the news that you're going to receive. And Jesus has been there. In John chapter 11, Jesus gets word that Lazarus, one of his friends, has passed away. And so Jesus and his disciples head towards Bethany where he was. And they get there and people are mourning. And let me read this part for you there. Jesus is talking with Mary, the sister of Lazarus. And when Jesus saw her weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. He was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. Jesus didn't take this lightly. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said to him, "Lord, come and see." And Jesus wept. Imagine what it would have been like to have been one of the disciples, to be standing there and to see Jesus get to Lazarus and start weeping. It's got to be scary to see Jesus weeping. Isaiah 53 says of Jesus that he was despised and rejected by men. He was a man of sorrows and well acquainted with grief. That was the air that Jesus breathed, that he was around sorrow, he was around grief. He understands what those things are like. Maybe you've had somebody who, for whatever reason, you've been in conflict with, and they don't want good for you, they want your downfall. And this person is out to see your demise for whatever reason. Right, and Jesus has been there all throughout his ministry. Groups called the Pharisees and the scribes are there picking away at Jesus, and they're trying to discredit him, and they're trying to catch him in some logical loophole so that they can discredit his ministry and what he's been doing. And probably one of the most heated conversations between them goes like this. Then a demon-oppressed man who was blind and mute was brought to Jesus, and he healed him so that the man spoke and saw. And all the people were amazed and said, "Can this be the Son of David? Is this the Messiah? Is this the Savior that we've been waiting for?" But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this one casts out demons." In other words, the Pharisees are standing there and they see Jesus giving back sight and speech to a demon-oppressed man, and they stand there and they're like, "Oh, it's probably because he's working with Satan." That's what Beelzebul means. It's another name for Satan, that all throughout his ministry they're coming and trying to discredit him like that. And maybe this year you'll face some temptation, right? That happens to all of us. You'll face some opportunity to do what does not glorify God, and maybe it's an attractive option, but it doesn't glorify God, and so we have to wrestle with, will I do what pleases God or do what pleases me? And even Jesus, the Bible tells us, had that option. Even Jesus faced that choice. In Luke chapter 4, Satan comes to Jesus. Jesus has been fasting in the wilderness for 40 days. And Satan shows up and he says, "Hey, if you really are the Son of God, if you really are who you say you are, why don't you just take this stone and turn it into bread so that you can have something to eat?" And Jesus responds and says, "No, it's by every word that proceeds from the Lord that man lives, not by bread alone, not by physical bread alone." And the temptations continue, and Satan says, "Well, why don't you do this?" And Jesus responds with something that God's word has said. And Satan says, "Well, why don't you do this?" And Jesus responds, "Well, here's what God's word says, so I'm not going to do that." But like we talked about earlier, it's not like Jesus is some knight in full armor getting shot at with toy darts. I believe he really did have that choice, but he came out victorious. But in every situation that we could possibly face in life, I would say, hey, Jesus has been there, and he understands, and he knows what you're going through, not with a head knowledge, but with a hands-on experiential knowledge. And maybe you think, well, it's a little bit different. Jesus probably didn't stress about taking finals or which car to buy or what job promotion to take or not. But I think if you read through the Gospels, I think Jesus has faced every kind of situation that you or I could possibly come up with, maybe in a little different form, but it's there. And that's a good thing. I don't want a Savior who doesn't know me, who doesn't understand me, who doesn't sympathize with me. And I would imagine that you don't want the same either. Some God who just looks down and is just like, oh, you're so insignificant, you're so puny, why can't you get this right? But I want a Savior who cares and says, I've been there, I know what you're going through, let me help you. And I don't like for songs to inform my theology, but occasionally one comes out that is a really beautiful picture of theology. Here's what John Mark McMillan, in a song called Closer, has written kind of on this concept. These are two of the verses from the song, and I love the song. You might not, just warning, but it's a little hard in some spots. But here's what he says. Come closer, closer to me. Find me broken and find me bleeding, because I need more now than a fairy tale and a God who lives in a book. I need someone real. Can you relate to that? I don't just need some God who only exists in this book who doesn't have any bearing whatsoever on my life. I need a God who is real. Come closer, closer to me. Find me broken, find me on my knees, because I need more now than philosophy. Some God in outer space doesn't mean anything to me. We need Jesus, the sympathetic priest. We need a God who cares about us. We need a God who relates to us, who knows the difficulties of life, if he's actually going to do any good whatsoever in our lives. Let's look back at Hebrews 4. Let me just start at the top again here. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. So Jesus has been there. He knows. He understands. And then the passage has kind of a cause-effect relationship here. So if that's the cause, then the effect is, verse 16, let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. So the cause, Jesus sympathizes with us in the difficulties of life. The effect, right? Jesus welcomes us to the throne of grace. He welcomes us. He says, hey, I know what you're going through. I've been there. Come to me and let me help you. And as I began over the past couple of weeks thinking about this passage and kind of getting ready for this morning, I realized there's a bit of a paradox almost in that term, the throne of grace. It's slightly counterintuitive that we would think of a throne and then expect at that place to find grace, to find help. When Israel in the Old Testament is asking Samuel and God to appoint a king, Samuel warns them and gives them a warning from God. And he says, hey, if you've got a king, he's going to take your daughters, he's going to send your young men off to war. Basically, he's going to do whatever he wants to, because that's the right of one who is on the throne, that his agenda, his prerogatives, his will, it trumps everyone else. And most kings take and do what they want without much regard to those that are under their throne. Even King David, a man after God's own heart, and I would say the best king Israel ever had, short of Jesus, right, was standing on his rooftop when he should have been at war and saw Bathsheba there bathing herself on the roof and decided, I'd like to have her. That was not his to have, but he had his men go and get her, and then ended up having her husband basically executed, sent him off to the front lines where he would surely die in order to cover up what he has done. Right? That's what we expect out of those on the throne. That their will, their agenda trumps everyone else. It's kind of a ridiculous example, I know, but if you've got little kids, maybe you've seen the movie Emperor's New Groove. Okay? It's got llamas in it. It's cute. And in the movie, one of the villagers comes to Cusco. Cusco is the emperor. So another fun name. We got Woost and Cusco. Thanks, Trish. One of the villagers comes to Cusco and he says, hey, I got this notice that you're taking my land. You can't do that because this is where I raise my llamas and that's how I support my family. I got these 2 little animated children that I need to provide for. And the emperor's like, oh man, bummer. That's where my water slide's going. I don't really care about you. That's what we expect out of those on the throne, that they're just like, well, I don't really care. My will is what matters because I'm the one on the throne, and that's not what Jesus says. Because while he's the sovereign king, he's also the sympathetic priest. And so he says, hey, I am on the throne, but you can come to my throne and you can expect grace. You can expect help, and that it's hard for us. Grace baffles me because I wouldn't expect it. Because I wouldn't expect that the sovereign king of the universe would care about what I'm going through. It offends my thoughts of what's right and what's wrong and what's owed and what's not. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Home Depot and I was buying pipe fittings. I made this table. And I bought some sandpaper and I stuck it in the box with all of the pipe fittings as I was going around. And then I got home and unloaded stuff and realized I hadn't paid for the sandpaper. They just rung up the whole box. I was like, well, that's not fair. So I was there again yesterday, and I got the same piece of sandpaper, and I brought it to the counter. I was like, last time I was here, a month ago, I didn't pay for this, and I want to pay for it. Because that's what's right. That's what's owed, and that's not how grace works. And so it's hard for us to imagine that the sovereign king of the entire universe would say, even though I'm on the throne, you can come to me. You can find help. Here's what Preston Sprinkle says about grace. Preston Sprinkle is my favorite writer who also sounds like a donut. It's like the 80th time I've used that joke, but I love it. He says this about grace. It refuses to be controlled by our innate sense of fairness, reciprocity, and even-handedness. It defies logic. It has nothing to do with earning, merit, or deservedness. It is opposed to what is owed. It doesn't expect a return on investments. It's a liberating contradiction between what we deserve and what we get. Grace is unconditional acceptance given to an undeserving person by an unobligated giver. It's a one-way love. That Jesus, being the sympathetic priest, even though he is on the throne, he is the sovereign king of the universe. The Bible says all things were created by him and for him. John 1 says that he was present there at creation when the entire world was formed. He is the sovereign king of all creation, and he says, you can come to me and expect help. You can find mercy. You can find rest. That God is not disinterested in us. That God is not distant. He's not like a father who walks out on his family. But Jesus says, I know what you're going through. I've been there. I care for you. Come. Come find grace. Come find mercy. Come find help. So because he is the sovereign king and the sympathetic priest, Jesus is our best hope in times of crisis. So he's not an all-powerful but distant God who has every ability to do what he wants to and to help you in any way that he wants to, but just doesn't care about you. And he's not a God who cares but can't do anything for you, or is going to look down and see that you're facing some new trial that Jesus never expected, and Jesus is going to look down and be like, oh, I never anticipated that. Bummer, sorry. Good luck. He knows and he cares, but he's also the one who's powerful enough to do whatever he wants about that situation. And so because of that, he is our best hope. Which means that some of the ways that we respond to crisis are probably a little bit wrong. Your spouse might be awesome. They're not as good as Jesus. Okay? Now, your spouse is a good gift from God, and I hope that they're a great source of joy and encouragement in your life. But they're not as good a hope as Jesus. And if you pin that on them, they will disappoint you. You are not as good a hope as Jesus. We've got this individualistic culture that kind of upholds the self-made man as the model to follow. This idea that, oh, well, you face hard times and you need to pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, which is a stupid expression because it's physically impossible. You just need to put your nose to the grind and get through this and push through. You need to do it. You'll be tougher on the other side. Looking to yourself, looking to others, it's never going to provide the kind of hope that Jesus does, because he knows and he cares, and because he's able to respond to the situation in any way that he wants to. So I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward, and we'll pray here in just a second. And I don't know about you, but I know that I am quick to run to any and every source other than Jesus when I'm worried. Anything and everything, right? I run to my wife, and she's great, but she's never going to be as good as Jesus. She's awesome, right? But she's never going to provide as much hope and comfort as Jesus. I look to myself and think, if I can just muscle my way through this, I'll get there. I don't know what you run to, but it's not as good as Jesus. We need to look to Jesus